Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of The Articulate Fly, and in this episode I interviewed Ben Bulis, the president of AFFTA. We cover a lot of territory, starting with Ben's early fishing career in New England, to all the great outreach that AFFTA is doing to promote our sport, and we end up with a really great overview of all the great things that are going to happen at IFTD in Denver in October. But before we get on to the interview, just a couple of housekeeping items. If you like the podcast, it'd be really great if you could give us a review and a rating in iTunes and subscribe in the podcatcher of your choice. Or a new development on the Articulate Fly front, we now have apps. So if you go to the Apple Store or the Google Play Store or the Amazon Android App Store and search the Articulate Fly, you can download our app. We'll be pushing bonus content and all sorts of good stuff in addition to our regular episodes through the app. And before we move on, just want to give a shout out to this episode's sponsor, the 20th Virginia Fly Fishing and Wine Festival. The event will be held on January 11th and 12th in Doswell, Virginia. And if you visit www.vaflyfishingfestival.org or our events page, you can get all the latest information on speakers, vendors, and classes. Now on to the interview. Well, welcome to the Articulate Fly, Ben. I'm really glad you're able to join us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Marvin.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, and I have an Articulate Fly tradition. I always ask all of my guests to share their earliest fishing memory.
I think the earliest fishing memory that I have, I grew up in southern New Hampshire in Manchester, and in Manchester is a lake called Lake Massabesic, and I vaguely remember fishing there. I was probably 6 or so. And my sister was 4 and a half, and she caught a huge trout while spin fishing there. And I remember my dad, for some reason, had a 5-gallon bucket, and I remember the fish would not fit in the 5-gallon bucket. So that's probably like the earliest memory that I have of fishing.
That's really awesome. And when did you move to the dark side of fly fishing?
I would say the first time I fly fished, I was probably 8 or 9 years old, up in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Our family would every summer go up there a couple times a summer and camp at a campground up there called Jigger Johnson's Campground, and the Swift River runs directly through the campground. And one of our family friends, he was a sales rep for Woolrich at the time. And he was a big fly angler, and he took me out one afternoon, and I caught my first fish on the fly up on the Swift River.
That's really cool. Do you remember the fly?
I do not remember the fly. No. It was a dry fly, though. I do remember that.
Awesome. And so as you kind of progressed deeper and deeper into the sport, who were some of the folks that mentored you?
You know what? I had the privilege of when I got a little bit older, I think I was 12 or 13, my mom and dad bought a beach house in Maine, and years before that, we would rent a beach house as well in the same neighborhood in Saco, Maine, and I was just enamored with fishing, especially in saltwater. It was just, for some reason, the adrenaline of catching a fish in the saltwater it stuck with me. It still sticks with me today. I mean, I love, obviously, freshwater fishing, but my passion is saltwater fly fishing, for sure. So, in those early years, I spent a lot of time running up and down the beach, just chasing, bait balls and trying to catch bluefish and striped bass.
Very, very cool. And obviously, you grew up in New England. How did you end up in the Northern Rockies?
I moved to Montana to go to school at Montana State University, and I've been here ever since. It's, let's see here now, 26 years. And I don't think I'll ever leave Montana.
Yeah. So, because I guess you went to Montana State, right, to study engineering?
I did.
Yeah.
Yep, I did.
And so I guess you joined AFFTA in 2012. What made you decide that you wanted to leave the commercial world and get into the not-for-profit world?
I was, my former wife and I always said before we had kids that one of us wanted to stay home with them. And I guess I was the fortunate one because her her career was a little bit more lucrative, and so let's see, that was in 2003, and I stayed at home, and I started getting into guiding fly fishing a little bit for my own sanity, I guess, for a gentleman by the name of Brad Parsh, who owned a fly shop in Big Sky, Montana at the time. And one thing led to another, and then it was, let's see, end of 2011, early 2012 is when I started thinking, yeah, I'm ready to go back to work. My son's going to be going into kindergarten, and one thing led to another. I was real good friends with Jim Klug, who owns Yellow Dog Fly Fishing Adventures here in Bozeman. And we were at the movie theater in Big Sky with our kids, and kind of, I'll make it short, but neither of our kids, his son Gus at the time was in an infant carrier, and he was crying and at the movie theater, and my son, who was 4.5 at the time, didn't really like movies, and so we left the movie theater. And in Big Sky, you can get pizza and you can get drinks as well, and so we went out and had a beer and had some pizza, and he looked at me and he was like, "Hey, would you be interested in working for AFFTA?" And I was like, "I don't know. Let me take a look at it. Let me think about it." And he and I talked about it over the next few weeks, and I did some research on AFFTA, and Jim Klug was the chairman at the time, and introduced me to Scott Harkins, who's a sales rep in Colorado, and he was the vice chair at the time, and we just started talking back and forth, and they said, "Well, come up with a plan of what you think you could do for AFFTA," and the rest is history. I started April 1st, of 2012.
Very neat. And for some of my listeners who may not know what AFFTA is, can you tell us a little bit about what the organization does for the industry?
Yeah, sure. AFFTA, the acronym stands for the American Fly Fishing Trade Association. So we are a group of members. It's a member-based organization, obviously, directly tied to the industry, fly fishing industry. So it's made up of guides and retailers and media and manufacturers, media entities, anyone who is in the business of fly fishing. That's who we represent. So we represent the industry on all different levels, whether if it's from tax and trade issues to clean water issues to access issues, anything that you can imagine or that we deal with within the industry. We do a lot of work in Washington, D.C. We have a great relationship with members of Congress. We also work closely with a lot of our associations, kind of nonprofit associations, conservation organizations, whether if that's Backcountry Hunters and Anglers or Trout Unlimited or the Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnerships. I sit on a policy council as well for TRCP, and we're deeply tied in Washington D.C. and we get a great audience when we go there. I mean, people. Who doesn't like fly fishing?
Yeah, no, I've connected with a lot of people through the sport myself. So backing up a little bit, so you started on April 1st in 2012. What did the landscape of AFFTA look like, and what challenges was the organization facing when you took over?
Well, the organization at that time had gone through a couple difficult times. One of the things was so the IFTD, and I'm sure we'll talk about that, the International Fly Tackle Dealer Show, was called FTR, which was Fly Tackle Retailer. And it was owned by a different entity. It was not owned by the association. And so if you go back and do some history and research on that time frame, it was the company who owned it at one point in time came to the board and said that they were not going to produce an annual trade show for the association. And I think that was in 2009 or 2010. It was before my time, but what ended up happening is that the board at that time, they decided, listen, let's start our own. This group is not going to produce a show for us, and we need an annual trade show for our industry. And here we are. So that was one of the issues or troubles that AFFTA went through, and tried to produce its own show. It had been in Denver for a long time, and in Salt Lake before that as well. And I think that was in 2010 when AFFTA produced its first IFTD show that it owned by itself. And then it went from Denver, went to New Orleans in 2011, and then in Reno 2012, and then in 2012, in the fall of 2012, is when we started our relationship with the American Sport Fishing Association and ICAST, and IFTD and ICAST co-located from 2013, which that was in Las Vegas, and then in Orlando, and we did the 2014 through the 2018 show in Orlando.
Got it. And talk a little bit about some of the changes that you've been able to implement in the organization over your 7-year tenure.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is communication, and we want to communicate with our members as much as possible. So we send out a lot of emails, just keeping our members abreast of what's going on within the association. Member benefits is a big thing that we came up with in 2012 and 2013. We introduced a guide and outfitter liability insurance in all 50 states, which is the least expensive insurance that you can find in the country. So it's $2 million of aggregate liability and $1 million per occurrence, and that is $400 a year. And for a guide to join the association, it's $35. So we've seen a tremendous amount of growth in that category within the industry, and it saves people a lot of money. And independent guides, if they try to go out and find their own insurance, it can be in excess of $2,000 for the same coverage. We also introduced a UPS shipping discount. We have Staples discount. We have liability. We have insurance as well for sales reps, and retailers can take advantage of for business insurance as well. There's definitely a lot of people out there, a lot of retailers that have taken advantage of it. And the one that always comes to mind is David Lineweber, who owns Angler's Covey down in Colorado Springs. He took advantage of the insurance and changed over, and he saved thousands of dollars on his annual premiums of switching over to what we offer.
Yeah, it's amazing how that works. I've done that in looking for insurance for gun clubs, and once you kind of get outside the box in the sportsman world, the underwriters really have a hard time wrapping their head around what we do.
Yeah, they definitely do. I mean, we had a lot of conversations with the underwriters and going through, I should say, our broker, who is Art Hoffert, and Art owns the Bissell agency here in Bozeman, and tremendous guy. He's been in the hunting and fishing world as far as the insurance industry for 30 years, and Art gets it. I mean, it was difficult. I mean, especially for when you start talking about flats guides specifically, and the insurance industry, once they start seeing, boats and going offshore, and they think that you're in, hundreds of feet of water and, miles offshore, it changes things. But, rest assured, we got with them and worked with Art and let them know that, these folks, these guides down in, anywhere in Florida or flat skiffs, they didn't realize that they were fishing inshore and not very far from shore. So, and then not in very deep water. And so that was one of the hurdles that we had to overcome, but it's worked, and it's been fantastic.
Well, that's great. And what should folks expect to see on the horizon in the next 3 to 5 years at AFFTA?
Well, we're just now finishing. We've been in almost a year-long process right now of updating our strategic plan, and it's going to be voted on here October 14th at our fourth quarter board meeting in Denver. And it was interesting to see going back through past boards and their process of developing a strategic plan, and going back and looking at all the things that previous boards were wrestling with. It's the same thing that this board wrestles with. It's benefits, it's show dates and location for IFTD, clean water, public access. It's all still relevant and still the same thing. And so we had an outside firm who we contracted with, and her name is Julie Absey, and it's been a great process. There was an environmental scan. She contacted quite a few manufacturer members, retail members that are not part of the board, and just and got their thoughts on where AFFTA is and where AFFTA should be going. And then we all came together, and I think we've had 3 face-to-face meetings with her now, and we're at the final stages of it. We're implementing it right now. And again, it's like anything that you do. It's important to look back upon historical evidence to see where the organization was and how it's kind of changed. So there's a lot on the horizon. I think there wasn't a tremendous amount of change, at least unless it doesn't get voted on, approved. But there wasn't a tremendous amount of change from previous attempts at this, or previous iterations of a strategic plan. And I think that bodes well for the organization, that we have our North Star, and it's still shining bright, and it hasn't changed very much.
Yeah, that's really good, because trying to move to a new North Star is very hard to do. We were talking about that before the call. What do you think is the biggest misconception a lot of people have about AFFTA?
That it's a network of good old boys. I mean, that was at one point in time, I think that's what it was. It was, people thought of it as being a manufacturer's organization, and that couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, we have a very diverse board. It's definitely, manufacturers are an extremely obviously important part of our industry, but they're not the only part. And so seeing the changes over the years of leadership within the board, we had our first, and I think it was 2013 or 14, we had our first retailer as the chairman of the association, and that was Tucker Ladd, who owns Trout's Fly Fishing in Denver, Colorado. And our current chairman now is also a retailer, Colby Tro from Mossy Creek Fly Fishing in Harrisonburg, Virginia. So it's been great. We've seen diversity. We have inclusion. We have women on our board, which I think is really important. I think it's Jen Levine, who works for Waterworks Lamson in Idaho. She was the chairperson last year. And so we've had a lot of change. I mean, it's been good. It's been good to see. It's good to see different people step up in different segments of the industry, different categories of the industry, to be able to have that leadership role. We had a sales rep as the chairman, Michael White. He was the first chair. He was the first chair that was a sales rep. So yeah, there's been a lot of change within the organization, and it's good to see. It was definitely a little, when you come in when I came in 2012, and you see those, see the faces of the people that were there when I first started, and there's nobody on the board any longer that was a board member when I started. There's still definitely people who are involved and engaged within the association. And Tom Sadler, who was the last board member to roll off the board last year, a year ago now, he was on the board when I was brought in 2012, and he's still sticking around. I mean, he's still part of the organization. I think once you become part of the organization and you understand how passionate people are within the board and our mission, it's hard just to walk away. It's a great group of people. And like I said, we're dedicated to the organization and to the industry. So Tom still, to this day, he chairs one of our committees. He chairs the Government Affairs Committee, and he's been in government affairs for, I think close to 40 years. He lives outside of Washington, D.C., in Virginia, and he's still very much involved with AFFTA, and he's a great resource to kick ideas off of, and he's a great writer as well. He ran the Outdoor Writers Association, so it was always good to have somebody that was there that when I first started, as far as kicking ideas off of and press releases and whatnot.
No, that's great. And so, if you're in the fly fishing industry, why should you join AFFTA?
Because it is your trade association. We are there representing your business interests, whether if it's in freshwater or saltwater fisheries management, access issues across the country. As we're going to talk about it, I'm sure Pebble Mine, one of the largest issues from our industry, environmental issues, I think, probably for one of the most important ever. It's been going on for 14 years. I jumped in, with 2 feet right away. The first week that I was hired for AFFTA, I was in DC at at an event lobbying efforts for saving Pebble Mine, or Bristol Bay, excuse me. And it hasn't stopped, and it's been going on for, I think, close to 14 years now. And that's the reason why you need to be involved. From fisheries management issues, whether if you're in Florida with issues that are happening with Lake Okeechobee and our relationship with Captains for Clean Water, to Stripers Forever and our involvement with Menhaden and striped bass in the Northeast. It's your government. It's your trade association, and you should be involved.
No, it makes a lot of sense. And we've touched on some of the environmental challenges, but, what do you think kind of at a macro level as you look out, what concerns you the most about the viability of our sport going forward?
Well, the viability, 2 things, right? Access and healthy habitats. So without those 2, I would say, pillars, we have nothing else, right? If we don't have access to healthy habitats, clean water, and fisheries that are managed productively for abundance, and for the long term, our industry suffers. Those are the things that I think are the most important things that we always have to remember on the horizon. And it's a never-ending process for us.
Yeah, and certainly access is becoming a bigger and bigger problem every day.
Yeah, for sure. Whether if it's in, I guess I'm lucky in the fact that I live in Montana, where Montana has the most proactive stream access laws in the nation. Where, if you're below the high water mark, you're fine. You're even on private property. I think we take it for granted. I think some people take it for granted that you can just walk out and go fish anywhere here in Montana. And I was in Wyoming 2 years ago for a wedding, and I was going to bring my drift boat down, and I got thinking about it. I was like, what? I don't know these waters very well, and I don't want to get a ticket for trespassing as far as being running AFFTA and being the president of the trade association, that I get a ticket from access issues or trespassing because I was on my drift boat. And so I just left my drift boat at home, and we hired a guide. And I'm glad that we did, because it's difficult. It's difficult to find places where, unless you know where you're going, because the landowner in Wyoming owns the river bottom, so you can't wade, you can't get out of the boat, you can't put an anchor down. It's considered trespassing.
Yeah, it's interesting how that varies from state to state. And, kind of moving on, we're recording this in the middle of September, and, all of us are familiar with the devastation that Hurricane Dorian wreaked on the Bahamas. I know you're talking to people in the industry down there all the time. What's kind of the latest about the situation on the ground?
Yeah, well, it's obviously, as anyone's been watching the news or within the industry, everyone's got ties to the Bahamas. It's like our backyard. I mean, if the people of the Bahamas are amazing, first and foremost, open, inviting, welcoming. They'd give you their shirt off their back if they had to. But the unfortunate thing is we had this tremendous storm that went through there, and it just devastated, parts of Abaco and north of Abaco and all of the Grand Bahama. And, and talking to a bunch of people that are down there, lodge owners and whatnot. I mean, this is a humanitarian effort at this point in time. This is, the lodges are insured, but the people aren't. They've lost everything. I mean, literally everything. Where I spoke to somebody, Rob Nair, who owns East End Lodge, the other day, and one of his guides had the same clothes on. He's had them on for over a week because he lost everything. And Rob was like, "Oh, why didn't you tell me? I would have brought you some clothes." And so this is a humanitarian effort, and it's not going to end. It's the infrastructure in the Bahamas to begin with was not what we are lucky to have here in the United States. I mean, it's going to be a tremendous amount of time, I think, before we see any resemblance of what it was beforehand. I think it's going to be years, and it's unfortunate. Yeah, like I said, it's that humanitarian effort. I mean, these folks are our brothers and sisters in the industry, and I've had the privilege and to go down there quite a few times and spend quite a few days fishing, and I think you remember the fishing trips that you take, but you don't. Sometimes you might remember the fish if it's something spectacular, but it's the people that you remember and those experiences, and on the flat skiff, and whether if it's a guide that loves to sing or tell jokes or whatever it may be, those are the people that you remember sitting around the campfire at night after you've been fishing or having a beer in the lodge. It's the people that you remember the most, and the people are, like I said, it's a humanitarian effort down there now, and those people's lives have been devastated.
Yeah, and I know that AFFTA's responded with the double haul for Dorian relief. Can you tell us a little bit about the program?
Yeah, you bet. Again, someone, as I said earlier, who still is, once you're part of AFFTA, it never leaves you, I guess. Jim Klug, and owner of Yellow Dog, or co-owner of Yellow Dog, and his business partner, Ian Davis. Obviously, they have deep ties to the Bahamas with the lodges that they represent in the area. But we came together right after the hurricane, and Jim and I, and Kirk Dieter as well from Angling Trade, and Matt, our communications director, Matt Smythe. And we just got on the phone and we were like, hey, we got to do something. The industry as a whole has to do something for this. And so luckily, Jim and Yellow Dog has got the Yellow Dog Community Corporation and Foundation set up. It's an international nonprofit. And so we thought, listen, this is the way it's going to go. It's not branded Yellow Dog. It's branded YDCCF, the Yellow Dog Community Corporation and Foundation, and our Conservation Foundation, excuse me. And all the monies go to the people. This is not about money going to the lodges. This is direct effort, direct impact on the people who were affected by the hurricane. So there's already been multiple airplane relief trips that have gone over to the Bahamas. There's been things from baby food to diapers to medications, toilet paper, and food. Just the bare essentials, right? That every human being needs: food, water, and shelter. So there's been tarps that have been shipped over, and this is an effort that it's I don't know what else to say except that it's just devastating what has happened. I mean guides that have lost family members and entire families that have died, and and we felt it's our responsibility. It's our industry. They're part of the industry, and we needed to step up and help them. And so that's what we're doing. And this is not just a flash in the pan thing. This is going to be around for a long time. I think that's the unfortunate thing in the 24-hour news cycle that we're a part of these days, is that you have these news stories or devastating natural events that happened, and after a while, people stop talking about it and they stop thinking about it. But we're committed to making sure that this is a very upfront, public-facing campaign for as long as it needs to be.
Well, that's really great. And is there a website that we can point folks to get more information and to make a donation?
Yeah, if you go right now to AFFTA, AFFTA.org, AFFTA.org, right on our homepage, front and center, when you open it up, there's a big flyer there that has the information on the double haul for Dorian, and you click on it, and it's got all the information and links and how you can donate. Awesome,
and I'll drop those in the show notes too.
Perfect.
Yeah, and I mean, and it seems like Bristol Bay is going to always be in the news, and I know that recently you encouraged your members to have a Day for Bristol Day, which was basically an event where retailers had folks come to their store and then gave a percentage of their sales proceeds to the cause. And I was just curious, how did the event go? How many organizations participated, and if you have an idea of roughly how much money you guys raised?
Yeah, it was a tremendous effort. I mean, this was hatched. Let's think about this in May, and so we had a lot of moving parts that had to happen here to get it to fruition. Luckily, we AFFTA, through our granting arm, which is the Fisheries Fund, already have a nonprofit status set up, and we came together with a bunch of creative ideas of how to go about doing this. The Day for Bristol Bay, just a single day where the entire industry comes together to help protect one of the most important fisheries in the world, and the last, sustainable caught fisheries or salmon in the country. I mean, it's a tremendous amount of there's a lot of economic impact that comes out of this Bristol Bay region for the United States and to our members. If you've never been there, it's one of the most amazing places ever. I mean, I had the privilege in 2012 to go there in August with Rich Hahn from Sims Fishing Products and Scott Haid, who works for the Alaska Sportsman's Foundation. And we stayed at a lodge up there and toured the area and got to fish some of the most iconic areas that you've ever heard of for salmon and trout. And we got an opportunity as well to tour the site of where the proposed Pebble mine would be, and from the air. And it's until you see it up front, up close and personal, when you're flying over it, it's there's no way to describe just how, first and foremost, how beautiful the area is and how interconnected the entire ecosystem is there. I mean, there's water everywhere, and it's just, knowing what the initial mine proposal was going to, how big it was going to be, and flying over the areas that are going to be, a holding pond for all of the the spoils that come out of the mine and out of the ground. It's just, and an earthen dam it was originally proposed to be 700, I think just around 700 feet tall. And so you're flying over areas that are, we were less than 700 feet off the ground at times. And just to think that there is going to be a mine and that size in that area is just, it's amazing. And it is the jewel. It's a crown jewel of the United States. And I mean, I understand that we all have to well, let me first say this, that, we as AFFTA are not anti-mine. We all know that we have to have these precious minerals and resources to survive in our modern day, but it's the wrong mine in the wrong place. I mean, if there was ever a failure, it would just devastate that fishery and a way of life for the native people.
Yeah, and I guess, you've had your day for Bristol Bay, and I mean, I think all of us that are around the sport get a lot of emails and a lot of information about what's going on, but what's the best way for the average fly fisherman to support the effort to stop pebble mine?
There's multiple organizations out there that are fighting for it. I mean, obviously, Trial Unlimited has been a partner in this from day one. TRCP is another one, Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership. AFFTA has been involved in this since day one. So, I mean, we still have, if somebody wants to donate it, you can still go to our website and donate towards the Day for Bristol Bay. We raised over close to $108,000 in that one day. And so, it was great to see the industry come together, from manufacturers to guides and outfitters, and we also had a public facing campaign just for the normal person that, wants to protect the area. And so you can still donate. It's still up on our website, and it's, those monies will still be earmarked, and all the money goes towards, into the fisheries fund. And the fisheries fund is 100% of the money collected goes towards the Bristol Bay Defense Fund.
Got it. And I'll drop the links to that in the show notes too. And, while we're talking about environmental stuff, probably within the last week to 10 days, there's been some pushback on the Clean Water Act and some of the protections that the Obama administration had tried to put in place, I guess, to protect tributaries of navigable waterways is probably, I guess, the simplest way to say it.
Yep.
And while we were talking before the call, you said that AFFTA had just released their position on that particular issue. You want to share that with my listeners?
Yeah, you bet. I mean, again, what I said earlier, clean water and access to healthy habitats and access to those healthy habitats are what drives our industry. And so without clean water, it's imperative to our industry to have that. And so the Clean Water Rule in 2015 under the Obama administration would have protected headwater streams and ephemeral streams, so that are not running all the time. We got a ton of them here in Montana, and so it would have protected those areas because, let's face it, everything runs downhill, right? I mean, all of those waters go somewhere, and then they end up in our ocean. And so it's unfortunate and that this has happened, and we're still fighting it and still involved and engaged. Again, partners, Trout Unlimited, we work really closely with them. They have a much larger, I guess, footprint than we do as far as a conservation organization. So we do rely on them quite a bit to help us out on these things and to keep us abreast of the situation that's going on there.
Well, that's really great. And of course, we're almost into October, which means it's almost time for IFTD. And I know you're excited to bring it back to Denver. Can you share with us a little bit about what was the impetus for moving the event from Orlando back to Denver?
Yeah, you bet. We're always, like I said, engaged and trying to engage with our membership as much as possible. And throughout the rumblings of the years of IFTD being in Orlando in July with ICAST. And let me first say that loved going to ICAST, love ICAST. I mean, I'm a fisherman. Doesn't matter if it's a fly or lures or throwing bait. It's fishing, and I love it. It's just they're all different tools in the quiver and different methods. And we started hearing people that wanted to have a change in the show, bring it to another location at a time that that the industry thought was best for it. And so, again, survey our members, surveyed manufacturers, retailers, guides, sales reps, and media. And we did that at the end of 2016 into the beginning of early 2017. And, we're only as strong as our members, right? And we're a member-based organization, and we do what's in the best interest of our members. And the overwhelming response was Denver, October. And it was, I think the final tally was 82% of people wanted to go back to Denver and to have it in October. And so that's what we did. We initially reached out to the Denver Convention Center in the summer of 2016, just to reserve some space with no contingencies, just so that we could offer those dates up to our membership. And, in January of 2017, when we were at it was the first Atlanta fly fishing show. We were there and we had our board meeting, and everybody that was there at the show, we had at that show and at the show hotel, knew that we were having our board meeting, and everybody was, huddled around waiting to get news, when we came out of that room. But we, as an association, out of respect, just wanted to make sure that, none of this information leaked out of the room and nobody heard about it before we had a conversation with the American Sport Fishing Association. And so I think it was February or March of that year, while I was in DC on a trip, I met with Mike Nussman, who was the CEO of the American Sport Fishing Association, and Glenn Hughes, who now is the president and CEO. Mike just retired last year. And we sat down and just had a face-to-face conversation and let them know that what was going on and where we were going to be. I mean, we gave them a 2-year notice and a commitment that we were going to be co-locating IFTD with ICAST through 2018. And that's how it came to be.
Got it. And what can you do in Denver that you weren't able to do in Orlando?
We could have done whatever we wanted to do in Denver. I mean, in Orlando, excuse me. The same that we're doing here in Denver. It's just that, we're doing everything. So we're managing every aspect of the show, from registration to, contracts with all the vendors within the Denver Convention Center for food and beverage and audio and visual and security. There's been a ton more work on my plate. There really wasn't any difference. I mean, working with ICAST and ASA was great. I mean, we had a great relationship. We still do have a great relationship. We just, it wasn't goodbye. I will see you soon. How about that? See you again soon is what the way that I put it when we decided to move to Denver.
No, it makes a lot of sense. And I mean, I guess too, being in Denver in October, it's great to facilitate networking for people to be able to come out and fish together either before or after the event.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's the pre-registration numbers that we have are just, it was the right decision, and our industry is backing that decision. We have, I looked earlier today, I think we're at 242 individual retail shops who have already pre-registered for the show. So it's a huge success, especially in an industry where, kind of the common theme is or thought process is there's probably between 400 and 450 specialty fly retailers in the country. And when you get over 50% of them, about 50% of them, signed up to come to your annual trade show, I think it's a huge success and a home run. And, we still have a month out. We still have just about a month out before the show kicks off. And so we still have 30 days of registration. It's, the I in IFTD, the international portion of it, is definitely coming through. We've got, attendees registered from 37 different countries.
Well, that's awesome. And, so for folks that may not know the exact dates, it's going to be October 16th through the 18th at the Denver Convention Center. And I know that the big kickoff event on the 16th is an opening breakfast with Stephen Ranella of Meat Eater. You want to kind of walk us through kind of the highlights of the show?
Yeah, you bet. So as you said, we take possession of the convention center on Monday morning. Monday morning, we get our exhibitor services company that comes in, Freeman, who we worked with for 8 years now. Great company. It's the same people that I have been dealing with for the most part, since we were in 2013 in Las Vegas. So Kevin Beal, who's my main contact there, still the same person that I deal with. Still, it's a great relationship. We have some new people, I guess, from Freeman that are helping us out. But yeah, the show floor gets set on Monday. Exhibitors that are 400 square feet or larger will be able to start setting up their booths on Monday at 2:00 in the afternoon, and then Tuesday morning, everybody can come in and start setting up their booth and at 8 a.m. and we'll probably go to 7 or 8 o'clock at night that night to get it ready. And then, like you said, a Tuesday evening, we have a seminar, 2 seminars and a reception. One is how to leverage Facebook and Instagram for the specialty fly retailer. We did the same seminar at our dealer summit in Austin this spring, and sitting through that seminar, I was amazed. I thought that I kind of knew what was going on with Facebook and Instagram and how you can do things. Boy, I got schooled really quickly. It's amazing what you can do and how it can impact traffic and sales from a specialty retailer. Get more people in your store, and then that evening or right after that seminar, Dan Morgan is gonna put that on. I don't know if you know Dan. He works for Project Healing Waters Fly Fishing, but what a lot of people don't know, Dan is one of 5 small business consultants in the country for Facebook, and so he's putting on this Facebook and Instagram seminar. And then from there, we roll into a presentation from Rich Hill from the Grassroots Outdoors Alliance. He's going to share some data on specialty retailers and brands, and then we're going to have a cocktail reception that evening. Retailers, if you want to come to that, or anybody, if retailers, manufacturers, whoever wants to come to those sessions, it's $75 to sign up for it. And if you show up to the event, you get your money back. That allows us to get some buy-in, some skin in the game, I guess, from some people to register for it, and also allows us to get a good head count for food and beverage needs. How many people are going to be there for the reception after? So we'll have an open bar for probably about an hour after that session, and have some food as well. And it's a great opportunity for everyone to come together the night before the show, have good conversation, and then go out to dinner after. And so then we roll in Wednesday morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. The doors will open at the convention center. It's in meeting room 706, I think it is, where the doors will open up. It's right below our hall C, which is at the Denver Convention Center. That is a pre-registration as well. It's $40 for breakfast, and the ceremonies will kick off at 7:30 in the morning. A brief presentation from myself, a discussion on kind of some of the things that we spoke about here in this interview, and Colby Troe, the chairman, will also speak, and then Frank Peterson. I don't know if it's going to be Frank or if it's going to be Rachel Piacenza from the Recreational Boating and Fishing Foundation is going to do a presentation. RBFF is their acronym, and they're the sponsor of the industry breakfast, and so they're going to provide some great data on participation in the industry. And then Steve Ranella from the Meat Eater. He's our keynote speaker. Avid outdoorsman, angler, hunter. I think he's going to share his views on fly fishing and fishing in general. And then, that we'll probably end about 8:45ish, 8:30, right around there, and then roll right upstairs. And then the doors to the convention center and the show opens at 9 a.m. and closes on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Again, we've got a tremendous lineup of seminars at the show that'll be going on throughout the 3 days. And you can find all that information on our website at AFFTA.org. If you click on the hover over the IFTD portion on our website, right below the logo, it will pop up a bunch of different options, and one within there is a seminar or a show schedule, excuse me. And new product showcase. Again, one of the highlights of our show, right? The blood, sweat, and tears of our manufacturers that goes into the products that they have released, new products for 2019. And it's voted upon by their peers. So media entities and retailers and guides who are at the show can walk into the new product showcase and vote on their products, what they feel is the best products of the year. 26 categories within the new product showcase. And then Thursday afternoon at 5:00 at one of the casting ponds, we close it's casting pond 1. If you look on the floor plan, it's the left casting pond. It actually closes at 2:00 in the afternoon to transform the back cast area into a stage setup. And we've got audio that has to go in there, and also get ready for the iron fly tying competition, which is sponsored by Renzetti. And Lily and her team, they do a tremendous job on it. She brings all of the tools and all the materials. And then, we have 20 tires, and they all sit down, and there's a panel of judges, and the best fly that you can tie with a secret material. And the MC of that event is my good friend Chuck Frimsky. He's the one who comes up with the secret material for the fly. So everybody has to tie in the final round a fly with this special material. And then there's a panel of judges, and the judges vote on which is the best fly. And then, like I said, at 5:00, once that's done, and we go into our new product showcase awards. It's the highlight of the event. In my opinion. I mean, you see the folks that put sometimes years and countless hours into developing a product and bringing it to market. And when they win, and they're voted upon by their peers, I mean, you can see it in their face and their eyes and their smile. And it's validation of what they believe in and the energy that they've put into this product. And, there's a couple other things, surprises going on as well at that time. Sweetwater Brewery out of Atlanta is the sponsor of the beer for the event, and they're going to announce something at the show as well. So, which is going to be great. I wish I could tell you. I wish I could tell you what it is, but. You just have to come to the show to find out what it is.
I'll be there. So,
yeah. And then, we've got a bunch of other things that evening as well. At the party at the pond, one of my very close friends, Robert Edens, who owns Road Drift Boats, he donated a complete drift boat to the Fisheries Fund. Again, that's our granting arm of AFFTA. Right now, we started that in 2014, and it's been self-funded for the most part from profits from IFTD. So AFFTA sets aside monies, and every year donates it to the Fisheries Fund, and then we give that we accept applications on a quarterly basis to the Fisheries Fund, and it's a separate board as well from AFFTA, and the board reviews the applications and then either approves or disapproves certain applications that we've got in. So Robert has donated a drift boat to that. And then we've had Sawyer Oars as well, has donated oars to it. Sage has also donated rods and reels, and Rio with lines and flies, selection of flies, and leader and tippet. And Yeti is donating a cooler to that as well. And so we're going to sell tickets at the show. There'll be multiple locations around. You'll probably see myself and some board members, and you can buy tickets at Row Drift Boat's booth as well. We're going to sell them $20 for an arm's length and pull the ticket on Thursday night, and someone's going to walk away with a package worth almost $14,000.
That's awesome. And do you happen to have any movies for the event?
No, we don't have any movies at that event. It's, Wednesday night is the Drake Film Awards. Film Awards, and that's going to be at the Curtis Hotel on Wednesday night. So that's where you can get your fix for movies as well. And then we, Thursday's a busy day on the show floor with all of the events that we got going on and seminars and the new product showcase and iron fly tying competition and Wednesday, we've got a casting competition, and historically, we've done a distance casting competition, but this year, we're going to be doing an accuracy casting competition, and that's sponsored by Thomas & Thomas, and it's Thomas & Thomas for the last few years has been sponsoring both casting ponds, and the folks over there at Thomas & Thomas have been great, huge supporters of AFFTA, and with the Neville Oarsman, he purchased Thomas & Thomas a few years ago, and his passion and for the industry it's amazing, and it's great to have them to be a partner and friends, and that's the thing, right? That's what IFTD, in my opinion, is. It's about the people. I mean, you've got a very small industry that you have a lot of competition within the industry, but you have a lot of camaraderie within the industry and lifelong friends. I mean, 8 years of running the association and being at these events and throughout the year, whether if it's IFTD or fly fishing shows or lobbying efforts that we have in DC that we bring members in for at times, these people have become my close friends, my dearest friends, some of them, and I think that's what the show's about. I mean, obviously the show's about product and manufacturers and retailers and sustaining what we have here and creating a venue for business to take place. But it's the networking opportunities, and it's those individuals and the people that you meet within the industry. I mean, if you don't come to the show as a retailer or anybody in this industry, I think you're missing out tremendously. It's you get to see the sales reps, and you get to see, maybe you get to know a couple people within the companies and the vendors that you're purchasing from. But IFTD is the place to come and meet, the VPs of these companies, the owners of these companies, the CEOs, where you create lifelong friendships and lasting relationships. A face-to-face and a handshake is still super important in this world, and I think that IFTD is the epitome of that. I mean, IFTD is the epitome of the fly fishing industry is the epitome of small business in America, and if you're not coming to these shows and taking the opportunities that are laid out before you to meet with the marketing managers, to meet with the sales managers, to meet with the CEOs, and it's not just about buying product, it's about your marketing opportunities, how you can work together as a team, and if you don't come, you miss out on it.
Yeah, I know the face-to-face thing I think is super important, not just because it's the way business used to be done, but I think, with technology, it has a tendency to really kind of depersonalize things. And so I couldn't agree with you more about having the opportunity to actually, shake hands and have a beer with folks that you're working with long distance. Yeah.
And it's the other thing too. It's not just that face to face with those manufacturers, right? That you're going into their booth and you're seeing them, and and the steps there, but it's also the networking that you have with your peers. Whether if you're a retailer, you might sit down and you get to see maybe your friend that's on the other side of the country once or twice a year, and you get to network and talk about business practices and what's working, what's not working, and the same can be said for every category of the industry that comes to the show. Whether if you're a retailer, media, guide, outfitter, lodge, industry associate, industry supplier, it's those relationships, and that's what our industry, in my opinion, it goes back to those personal relationships. Like I said earlier, on a fishing trip, you might not remember the fish or the location or everything about the trip, but boy, you sure remember those people that you were fishing with. And it's the same thing can be said for the business. It's those business relationships. It's those personal relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, your vendor space has been sold out for ages. How long will registration stay open?
Registration is open the entire time. The online registration will stay open, and people will be able to register in person. I strongly suggest that if anybody is thinking about coming to the show, is that you pre-register, just so that you don't have that hassle of standing in line and having to tell somebody all the information and having to validate. I think that's the biggest thing, right? Is validating all of these people that are coming to the show. I personally validate every single attendee. So Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, all the social media that you can imagine has been my go-to tool here for validating people at the show, specifically, retailers and media and retailers. The retailer badges are free, so because we don't want any barrier to entrance. So retail badges are free, and so we've had I've denied quite a few people. And had to change a lot of people's registration as well, from a retailer to an industry associate, industry supplier, to even to a non-exhibiting manufacturer.
Got it. Well, before I let you go tonight, Ben, why don't you let folks know where they can find you on the internet?
Yeah, sure. You can find us at AFFTA at www.affta.org. We're also on Facebook. As the American Fly Fishing Trade Association, and also on Instagram at AFFTA and then _IFTD.
Well, that's great. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to chat with me, and I look forward to seeing you in person in Denver.
Yeah. Thanks for your time, Marvin. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ben. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Folks, I hope you enjoyed that interview as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. If you enjoyed the podcast, it'd be really great if you could give us a review in iTunes and subscribe in the podcatcher of your choice, or you can try out our new Android and iOS apps. Again, a shout out tonight's sponsor, the Virginia Fly Fishing and Wine Festival. Tight lines, everybody.